Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are making 10 fun and easy Dollar Tree Christmas ornaments. So let's get started. I have this clear plastic ornament from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be filling it with this red paint from Deco Art in the shade Santa Red. To start with, I'm taking the top off the ornament, then squeezing some paint into the ball, rotating it a little bit to get paint all around the sides. Once I have some paint squeezed in there, I'm turning the ornament over, trying to get the paint to drip down onto all sides. Then I'm squeezing some more paint inside. The fastest way to get all of the paint spread around all the sides of the ornament is to put the ornament topper back on, then shake the ornament to get all the paint moving around, covering all the sides of the ball. I recommend doing this to start with as soon as you start putting some paint inside the ornament. This helps to reduce the amount of excess paint you have. I'm putting it face down onto a napkin to let all of the excess paint drip out. You could also set this up with a skewer inside of the ornament, inside of a can or a jar or something like that. That way the paint will be able to drip out even better. I am taking this white fluff, which came on a roll, I believe, from Dollarama, and I'm cutting off a small strip that will fit around the top of the ornament. I'm putting a strip of hot glue down the center of this piece of white fluff. Then I'm folding it in half. Next, I'm adding hot glue around the top of the ornament, then pressing my white fluff onto the hot glue. Next, I'm taking this thin black velvet ribbon from Michaels, and I'm wrapping it around the largest part of the ornament, then cutting it off. I want the ribbon to be even thinner, so I'm cutting it in half lengthwise. I'm adding hot glue onto my ornament, then pressing the velvet ribbon onto the glue. And as I wrap the ribbon around the ornament, I'm adding more hot glue and pressing the ribbon down. Next, I'm making the belt buckle out of silver cardstock. I turned it around so the white side is facing up, and I'm drawing a square with a smaller square inside. I cut out the square, then I poked a hole in the center and used scissors to carefully cut out the inner square. This was a little bit tricky, but if you have even smaller scissors, that would work much better. Now I'm adding hot glue to the back of my paper buckle. Then I'm sticking it onto my ornament. Next, I'm taking this ribbon from Dollar Tree that is red with gold candy canes on it, and I'm weaving it through the top loop of the ornament, then making a loop and tying a knot at the top and cutting it off with scissors. I'm taking a plastic Christmas ornament from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be painting it with this white paint from Deco Art. For this ornament, I'm painting the outside of the ornament, but of course you could also add the paint inside of the ornament. That does give it a more polished look as opposed to painting the outside. It's a little bit more difficult to get that perfect look, but this is just another way to do it that I thought I would show you in today's video. While I'm letting the first coat dry, I'm painting the top part of the ornament with a gold paint. And And then I'm going back and painting my next coat of white on the Christmas ornament. Once all my paint is dry, I'm going in with craft glue, and with the glue, I'm writing the letter A on the ornament. Then I'm taking some gold glitter and sprinkling it all over the glue. You want to make sure all of the glue is covered with the glitter, and don't worry about putting too much on there because the excess will come off. I'm using my Cricut weeding tool to guide some of my glitter pieces into place, poking them up a little bit to make sure I get that perfect letter A shape. Now I'm taking this glossy finish Mod Podge from Deco Art, and I am painting that over top of the glitter. This helps to seal it in and make sure none of those glitter pieces fall off. To hang my Christmas ornament, I'm taking this thin, sparkly white ribbon, and I'm tying it through the top of the ornament, making a loop and tying a knot at the top. I'm taking this clear plastic ornament from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be filling it with this fake snow, which are all these tiny little white balls. First, I am taking off the top of my ornament. Then I'm taking this silicone funnel and pushing it inside of the ornament. And using my fingers, I'm grabbing some of these tiny balls and putting them inside of the funnel so they fall into the ornament. After a little while, I started pouring the tiny balls into the ornament instead of doing it by hand. But I did a little bit too much at a time, so they weren't going through the funnel into the ornament very well. I had to move the funnel around a bit and shake it around. And that did work, but it also made the funnel come out and spill some of the balls onto my table. And then I started pouring smaller amounts of the balls at one time, and this worked a lot better. It was just going straight into the ornament. And then, of course, sometimes the funnel still fell down and made a big mess. So if you have any tips on how to do this a little bit better so this doesn't happen, that would be greatly appreciated. I think I need some kind of a funnel that would stay in the ornament better. I'm not sure if that exists, or maybe I need to be more careful not to shake the ornament and just put in smaller amounts of the balls at a time. But I was trying to figure out how to do this the fastest way, which of course usually ends up making the biggest mess and taking even more time. Once I thought the ornament was looking pretty full, I put the ornament topper back on and kind of shook it around a bit. Then I decided it needed a little bit more, so I took it back off and I'm putting in some of the little balls that fell onto the table into the ornament by hand. Next, I'm going to be making the hat for my snowman out of this black foam. I'm wrapping the foam around the top of the ornament to give me an idea of how big to make the hat. Then I'm cutting out my rectangle. I'm adding a line of hot glue to one end of the foam piece. Then I'm folding it over in the shape of a cylinder and connecting the two ends of the foam, holding it in place for a little bit while the glue dries to make sure it sticks together. I'm now putting my foam cylinder back onto the same piece of black foam, and I'm drawing a circle around it that will be the base of the hat. I'm using my Cricut weeder tool so that I can see the indent on the foam of how big the circle should be. But you could also use a white marker or something that will show up on the black foam. I'm now cutting out my circle, then trimming it a little bit. Then I'm adding hot glue to the bottom of my foam cylinder and pressing the cylinder onto the center of my foam circle that we cut out before. Using my scissors, I'm poking a hole in the bottom of the hat. This way, the top of the ornament can fit through the hole and the hat can sit nicely on top of the ornament. My hat is a little tall for what I'm wanting, so I'm trimming it down. I'm now tracing around the cylinder onto my foam piece and cutting out a smaller black circle. And I'm poking a hole in the center of this circle and making it a little bit larger with my scissors. Then I'm adding hot glue just inside the top of the cylinder piece of the hat because I want this smaller circle to fit just inside. This part is a little bit tricky to get it to not fall down into the hat. So I'm using my Cricut weeder tool to guide it into place. I wanted it to be flat level with the cylinder part of the hat instead of sitting on top. But of course, you could do it that way as well. I just thought fitting inside slightly would look a little bit better. Now, this is the part where you learn from my mistakes because I realized I forgot to attach the ribbon to the ornament. So currently it has no way to hang on the tree. So I had to lift up this smaller circle so that I can see that top part of the ornament there, and then slide a ribbon through and tie a knot. Then I cut off the ribbon and I'm folding it over and weaving it through the hole of the top circle. Now I'm gluing that circle back into my hat, adding the hot glue just inside the top part of the cylinder, then pressing the circle into the glue. I'm folding it over and choosing how long I want it to be, then cutting it off. Now I'm adding a bit of hot glue, folding the ribbon over into a loop and pressing it into the glue. To decorate my hat, I'm adding some hot glue to the base of the hat and sticking down this little bunch of berries that has a long green stem on it. Now to make the face of the snowman, I have this orange cardstock and I'm drawing a triangle for the nose, then cutting it out. Using some black cardstock, I'm cutting out 2 small circles for the eyes. I'm adding 2 dots of hot glue onto my ornament, then pressing in the eyes, then adding some more hot glue and pressing on my orange carrot nose. I'm repeating the same process with the mouth. I cut out a bunch of small black circles, and now I'm gluing them onto the snowman. I want to decorate my hat a little bit more, so I have this bunch of greenery that has this silver sparkly glitter on it, and I'm cutting off a small piece, then arranging it onto my hat to cover up that stem there, and I'm adding the hot glue and pressing the greenery into the hat. I'm taking a clear plastic ornament from Dollar Tree along with this thin twine, and I'm going to be gluing this twine onto the ornament. Starting at the top, I'm adding hot glue all around the top silver piece of the ornament, and I'm wrapping the twine around. I'm continuing to do this for the entire ornament, wrapping the twine around and adding bits of hot glue as I go. I found I didn't need to add hot glue around the whole ornament for the twine to stay in place. I add it on one side, start wrapping the twine around, and then add a bit more on the other side of the ornament. I want to make sure that none of the twine is overlapping each other, but I also want it to be as close to the previous section of twine as possible, so none of the ornament is showing through. This is one of those things that's really easy to do, but is a little bit tedious and time consuming. But once you get into the groove of it, it does start to go a little bit faster. Now that I'm near the end, I'm folding the twine over to see how much I need to cover the very bottom, then cutting it off, adding hot glue to the bottom and folding the twine over and pressing it in place. And this is what the ornament looks like when it's all covered in the twine. To decorate it, I'm using one of these snowflake wooden cutouts from Dollar Tree, and I'm hot gluing it to the front and center of the ornament. I'm taking this clear plastic ornament from Dollar Tree, along with this Christmassy napkin, also from Dollar Tree, that is red and decorated with all of these white snowflakes and stars. I'm unfolding the napkin, and you can see one side is mostly white, so I'm cutting that part off. Now I'm cutting the napkin into strips that are about maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches wide. The exact size doesn't matter. It's just helpful to have the smaller strips when adding the napkin onto the ornament. I'll be using this glossy Mod Podge from Deco Art. And to start, I'm taking off the ornament topper, then brushing some of the Mod Podge onto the ornament. Now I'm taking my first strip of the napkin and pressing it onto the ornament into the glue. As I'm pressing my strip down and folding it around the bottom of the ornament, I'm also adding more of the Mod Podge where the napkin is going to go, then pressing the napkin down. I like this method of adding bits of the Mod Podge at a time as opposed to covering the whole ornament at once, just because it makes it less messy and easier to handle the ornament. So as I'm going around, I'm brushing the Mod Podge onto the ornament, then adding more strips of the napkin. I'm continuing to add my napkin pieces, trying to cover all of the ornament, making sure there are no empty spaces. Now that I have quite a few pieces of napkins on here, I felt like I didn't need any more overlapping on the bottom of the ornament there. So I'm trimming off the excess of my next pieces of napkin. I just didn't want the bottom to getting too thick compared to the rest of the ornament. If there are any small sections that need covering, you can cut a smaller piece of napkin, then brush some Mod Podge on and stick the napkin down. Here's what the ornament is looking like when it's all covered in the napkins. Once the ornament is dry, I'm taking the Mod Podge again and brushing it all over the whole thing. Here's what it looks like when the ornament is covered in the Mod Podge, and then we will let that dry. Here's what it looks like when that part is all dry. So all of the napkin pieces are stuck down in place, and our ornament has a little bit of a shine to it from the glossy Mod Podge. I'm now putting the ornament topper back on top. I'm hot gluing a little piece of greenery to the top of the ornament for some decoration. Then I'm taking a bunch of small white berries and hot gluing it to the bottom part of the greenery and adding a couple of mini silver bells with some hot glue as well. I'm using this thin white shimmery ribbon and weaving it into the top of the ornament, making a loop, then tying a bow at the top. I'm taking a small plastic clear ornament from Dollar Tree. And for this DIY, I'll be using this brown felt. I'm cutting thin strips into the felt with my scissors. Then cutting horizontally to make small pieces of the felt. Taking these little felt pieces, I'm putting them inside of my clear ornament. I want to fill up the ornament with these pieces of brown felt, so I'm continuing to cut strips of the felt, then cut those strips into smaller pieces. Now I'm filling up the ornament with all of these brown felt pieces. Here's what it looks like, all filled with the brown felt. I'm now taking this red berry, cutting off the stem, then adding some hot glue onto the front of the ornament and pressing the berry into the glue for Rudolph's nose. For the eyes, I'm adding 2 dots of hot glue, then adding these big googly eyes into the glue. Now, these eyes are a little bit big for this ornament, but it's what I had on hand already, so I'm going with it. And it gives him kind of a silly look, which I think is fun. For Rudolph's antlers, I'm using a brown pipe cleaner, and I'm folding it in half, then cutting it. Then I'm placing this piece on top of the ornament and trying to shape either side into antler pieces. I'm then cutting this piece of pipe cleaner in half. Now I'm adding bits of hot glue on either side of the silver ornament hanger piece and pressing in my 2 antler pieces on either side. Now I wanted to make some eyebrows for Rudolph, so I'm taking the same brown pipe cleaner, cutting it into 2 small pieces, then using hot glue to add on the eyebrows. Once they were on, I felt like they were a little bit, so I took them off, trimmed them down a little bit, and added them back on. Now for Rudolph's mouth, I'm also using the same brown pipe cleaner, making a little V and hot gluing it right underneath his nose. I'm using a clear plastic ornament from Dollar Tree, and I'm pushing in my silicone funnel into the top of the ornament. Then I'm taking this sparkly fake snow and sprinkling it into the funnel to go down into the ornament. This is going to represent the melted snow of our melted snowman. Now for the nose, I'm cutting out a triangle from orange cardstock and adding it into the ornament. Then I'm using some black paper and cutting out a bunch of small circles to represent the eyes, the buttons, and the mouth. Then I'm adding the circles into the ornament. For the snowman's scarf, I'm using this red and white plaid ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I cut off a piece and then I'm cutting that in half lengthwise to make it even thinner. Then I put that inside of the ornament. Next, I'm cutting out a hat for the snowman. I just cut out a hat shape from the black paper. Then I'm putting it inside of the ornament. I don't love how the scarf is looking in there. I feel like it doesn't really look like a scarf. So I'm taking it out with my tweezers and I'm folding it over to be more of a scarf shape and adding a dot of hot glue to keep it in place. Then I'm adding the scarf back into the ornament. Now to make the snowman's arms, I'm cutting out some sticks out of brown felt. You could also use brown cardstock if that's what you have on hand. Once my 2 stick arms are cut out, I'm adding them into the ornament. I have this small clear plastic ornament from Dollar Tree, and I'll be using this light colored twine to decorate it. I'm taking off the top of the Christmas ornament, then adding a dot of hot glue right at the neck of the ornament, then pressing in the end of my twine. Now I'm adding a dot of hot glue to the very bottom of the ornament, then wrapping the twine around, pressing it into the glue, and continuing to wrap it around to the other side, cutting it off, and adding a dot of hot glue to the top of the ornament. Now I'm adding hot glue in the same place as before at the top where the previous strand starts. And I'm angling this one so it doesn't overlap the previous strand. For the third strand, I'm adding hot glue right next to the previous strands at the top of the ornament, wrapping it around, adding hot glue to the bottom, and continuing around to the other side of the ornament. For the pattern that I'm making, I'm doing 2 strands close to each other but not touching, then a larger space, 2 strands, a larger space, 2 strands, and then you can see the effect that is starting to give. Once I have all my strands around the ornament, I'm adding hot glue to the very bottom, then pressing in the same cotton twine, and I'm making it into a circle on the bottom of the ornament, then continuing to add hot glue and build it up on top of each other. So it's making a little bit of a cylinder effect on the bottom of the ornament with the twine. Now I'm going to make a tassel for the bottom of the ornament. I'm using this little piece of cardboard that my ornament was attached to originally, and I'm wrapping the twine around a bunch of times. I think I ended up wrapping it around about maybe 22 times, something like that. I would say you only need to wrap it around 10 times. After you're finished wrapping, cut off the twine, then cut through the bottom loop, slide the twine off the cardboard. And this is where I'm dwindling down the amount of twine pieces that I have. But now you can wrap a smaller piece of twine around the top of the tassel. I'm adding hot glue on the bottom of the ornament. Then I'm pressing the top of the tassel into the hole. With the top piece of the ornament back on, I'm adding some bead details to the ornament. At first, I'm taking the tiny little purple beads and adding them to every second section of twine pieces at the top of the ornament. On every other section, I'm adding the larger pearly pink beads. Directly below those pinkish beads in the middle of the ornament, I'm adding dots of hot glue, then pressing in these bluish silver beads. Below the purple beads, in line with the blue beads, I'm adding more of the small purple beads. I'm then adding more of the pinkish beads at the base of the ornament, underneath all of the blue beads. I'm now taking some small white foam berries and adding sets of 3 in a line to each section of the ornament that doesn't have any beads. For this ornament, I'm taking a small styrofoam ball, and I'll be decorating it with these red and green pom-poms from Dollar Tree. I'm starting with all of the larger pom-poms in this pack, using hot glue and adding them on all sides of the styrofoam ball. Now I'm going in with all of the small pom-poms, adding them into all the white space on the ball with hot glue. I'm trying to not put too many of the same color next to each other, creating a bit of a pattern of green, red, green, and then red, green, red. Of course, it won't be perfect, and some of the colors will match up with each other, but I'm just trying to get them evenly dispersed. I ended up using the whole pack of pom-poms to cover the styrofoam ball. But if you're using a larger styrofoam ball, then of course you'll need more pom-poms. I'm now taking this sheer red ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I'm cutting 4 strips of the ribbon, then folding them into loops and hot gluing each one together. Then I'm hot gluing 2 loops on top of each other and the other 2 loops on top of each other, then hot gluing the 2 ends together to make a bow. And I'm hot gluing this ribbon piece onto the top of the ornament. I'm using hot glue to shape the bow and adjust each of the loops to get the shape that I want. Now, I did find that the hot glue wasn't a great mix with the sheer ribbon, because if you get hot glue anywhere where you don't want it to be visible, then it is very hard to get off and doesn't make the best look. If you had a ribbon that wasn't so sheer, then this probably would be a little bit easier. For the tails of the ribbon, I'm cutting 4 more pieces of the ribbon, then hot gluing 2 to one side and 2 to the other side. To hang the ornament, I'm using this sparkly green pipe cleaner, and I cut it into a smaller piece, then folded it over into a semicircle, and I'm hot gluing it to the top of the ornament. I looked up the sheet music to this Christmas song online, then printed it off, and now I'm cutting it out into thin strips. I'm going to be adding all of these strips into a clear plastic ornament. And before I do so, I'm twisting each piece so it looks kind of like a twisted ribbon. I tried rolling them at first, but once you roll them, then add them into the ornament, I didn't think they looked very good. So this twisting method worked a lot better. I'm taking each of my strips of sheet music, twisting them and putting them inside the ornament. Once they're all in there and the ornament is filled with the Christmas music, I'm taking this sparkly gold ribbon from Dollar Tree and I cut off a long piece of it. I'm adding a dot glue on the underside of the ribbon, then making a loop with the ribbon. I'm then adding more hot glue and making another loop the same size next to the first loop. Then I'm cutting another smaller piece of the ribbon and I'm wrapping it around the center of the bow between the two loops. And I'm hot gluing it in place. Now I've created a cute little gold bow for the top of my Christmas ornament. I'm using my Cricut weeder tool to move some of my pieces of paper around inside the ornament, just to get it looking exactly how I want it to be. Then I'm adding the top of the ornament back on, putting some hot glue on the front of the silver piece, and pushing in my gold bow. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for lots more fun DIYs every single week. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below on which ornament was your favorite, and I'll see you next time.